If you like Dragon Rider fantasy, this is a review to watch. Hi everyone, my name is Kayla and welcome back to Kay's Hidden Shelf, where we talk about books. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my spoiler-free review for Ascendant by Michael R. Miller. This is book 1 in the Songs of Chaos series, a Dragon Rider fantasy. I apologize again, my voice is still a little bit on the wonky side after still getting over some colds. I'm hoping it will be better soon, but like last video, I will try my best to get any weird hiccups or voice problems out in editing. Before we dive into this, I do want to give a little background on my own reading with Dragon Rider fantasies. There was a point where I did read quite a few of them, but I had found that while I love dragons, the tropes that often surrounded them in the kind of books that I was reading just became repetitive. Until I read Dragon Mage by M.L. Spencer, it felt refreshing and left me wanting to try more dragon fantasy again. This led me to Ascendant. It had sat on my TBR for a little while. The author had actually reached out, and I had told them not to worry about sending a review copy for this one, as I've had it on my TBR for some time. The story here follows a young boy named Holt Cook. His role in life is to serve in the Craig's kitchens and one day take over his father's role as head cook. However, Holt dreams of becoming a dragon rider and serving with the Order in order to fight against the Scourge. Only Holt learns a dark secret. The dragons will kill any of their eggs that are deemed weak or flawed. This leads Holt to stealing a doomed egg, and he ends up finding himself in something far bigger than he could have imagined. Dragon riders are being slaughtered, and a race to save the world from blight, undead beings, and destruction begins. Something I appreciated is the author does not waste any time throwing readers right into adventure, action, magic, and dragons. Readers are dropped right into the story, and it hits the ground running. Let's talk about the characters, because Holt and the side cast had a charming dynamic between them as well as good developments. Despite Holt being 15 years old at the beginning of the story, he has a believable maturity about him. Being raised into a life of servitude gives him a unique perspective into the world, and I love how it impacted the story as well as the characters' relationships. In particular, his relationship with the dragon that he took was endearing as their bond developed and they learned together. To me, this felt as much the dragon story as it did Holt's. The difficulties that they also faced provided unexpected plot developments that I absolutely enjoyed. Now, while the story starts from a single POV with Holt, later on towards the final scenes of the books, we actually are introduced to a new POV from one of the side casts, which is Talia. This didn't actually feel out of place, which I was surprised. I thought it being introduced so late into the story, it would have been a bit more jarring, but it actually flowed in seamlessly. I think a big part of the reason is that we get to know Talia pretty well throughout the story from Holt's POV, that slipping into her POV felt pretty easy. It's also designed in a way to give readers a better insight into the final scenes of the book, which worked out beautifully. Something else that impressed me was how effortless it was to get lost in the magic, characters, and the world. The author naturally built each layer into the story, making an accessible read while still packing in some emotional, impactful scenes and plenty of action. So let's talk about the magic, because the magic and the dragon bonds were engaging and included consequences to their use. Not only that, but it went into far more depth than I anticipated. It certainly had that progression fantasy feel to it, and it was written in a way that allowed the readers to learn alongside the characters. This just might be a me thing, but I absolutely love that the way we learned this was partially through cooking analogies. The foodie in me absolutely loved that part. So what about the tropes? Did they feel repetitive like I used to find with Dragon Rider fantasy, or did they feel similar to the feeling I had with Dragon Mage, which was refreshing and different and exciting? I will say that the tropes did feel recognizable from Dragon Rider fantasy I had read before. However, it was unique in how it wove it into the world building and the lore. As I mentioned, it includes elements from progression fantasy, but also includes some from classic fantasy. One aspect that I absolutely loved in this was the world building and lore. The developments that we find, how intricate it all is, really piqued my interest. Overall, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This is a fast-paced, action-packed adventure that left me wanting to continue these series to see what happens next. And the author was kind enough to send me review copies for books 2 and 3. You bet I'm going to be diving into this. I am so excited to see what happens to the main characters, but I want to know more about this world. I'd certainly recommend this for fans of Dragon Mage, Aragorn. If you enjoy high fantasy and detailed world building along with dragons, definitely this is a series to check out. But what do you think? Have you read this already? Have you read this series? Am I in for a treat? Or is this new to you and will you pick it up? Leave your comments down below. I always love hearing from you. And as always, thank you so much for watching and take care of yourselves.